A protagonist is the most important character in a story. They drive the plot, they usually take on the central conflict of the story, and they're usually a person that the audience can either see themselves in or they can root for. They're supposed to keep the audience invested in the story as they witness their growth throughout their journey. A protagonist alone can decide the level of success or lack of success a story has. Today, I'm going to be ranking every total drama main protagonist, which will be from every season except for the spin-offs in Total Drama-Rama and Total Drama Presents The Redonkulous Race. Alright, it's time to get in here. In 8th place, it's Caleb, the newcomer from Total Drama Island Revival Season 2. I can actually envision Caleb being a good character because he's funny sometimes and he has a good heart. I actually made him into what I wanted him to be when I wrote a whole season 3 my way for the Total Drama Island Revival. Caleb has potential, but the problem is none of his good aspects got to shine because he wasn't even his own character, his own personality. Every action that this guy took and every word that this guy said was all about Priya. Priya. He came in with the right mindset, wanting to align with the previous winner and play a more strategic game this time around, which is respectable. But that said, he could have been a way better protagonist if he interacted with more characters, or if all of his conversations weren't so Priya-centric. But no, all of his efforts went towards the showments that ruined the season. Also, this guy had major plot armor. He got exposed as a potential liar, but everyone voted out Z because he spilled their secrets. Seriously? Then a deal with Julia just fell into his laps, and since Julia was the main power player, this deal protected him and Priya for a while. It was just an excuse to get them further in the game. They went all out for boring showments that added nothing to the season. But even with all that, he still would have been a better winner than Wayne. Such an unserious winner. But yeah, Caleb is going to rank in 8th place for being a boring character with not much to him outside of Priya. In 7th place, it's Heather from Total Drama World Tour. She didn't make any notable developments in her character throughout the season of World Tour. The people around her changed and stopped believing her because she's a bad person, but she herself didn't make any changes to counteract that. She was still a bad person, it's just that Alejandro was worse, at least in universe. On top of not developing into anything meaningful, she wasn't an entertaining character, constantly getting outshone by other characters like Alejandro, the love triangle, and even Blaney. She barely did anything in this season and was very much an afterthought to everything good that World Tour had to offer. Her only claim to fame was being one of the only people that could see through Alejandro, which didn't even pan out all that well because she couldn't use that knowledge to benefit her as she failed to get him out of the game on multiple occasions, just having a terrible success rate. Even when Alejandro got eliminated, it was an alternative ending in which Alejandro's ending was a better conclusion to the season because he, in this season, was a better driver of the season than Heather that just coasted along for a good amount of the ride. So she's going to land in 7th place. In 6th place, it's Zoey from Total Drama All-Stars. In that season, she was very unrootable, which is big when it comes to how well a protagonist is written. First off, she was just way too overpowered to even be taken seriously. In this season, she barely showed signs of weakness. She was good at everything, and in the end game, she comped out from the final 6 on, winning 3 straight challenges and a 4th challenge including the finale. Despite being a beast in this season, the only person that thought to target her was Courtney, which didn't matter because Courtney wasn't enough resistance. Actually, she wasn't resistance at all because she had Scott and the love triangle to deal with. So Because of this, Zoey was never legitimately on the chopping block and never had to overcome that, just making her run to the final so easy. Even when she showed a sign of weakness in not being able to recognize that Mike was Mal, it didn't really affect her in the game. There was no repercussions from that. She just kept on getting to skate by and win her challenges. Also, despite being a main character, a prominent character, plot-wise, she wasn't that central to this season. Like I said, she won her challenges while characters like Mal and Alejandro and stuff like the Love Triangle and Scottney drove this season story-wise more than Zoey. So yeah, it wasn't fun watching Zoey waltz her way into an easy win, and it wasn't fun watching her be so airheaded about Mal when she and Cameron had plenty of evidence right in front of them all season. They tried so hard to make Zoey happen, and that's why she failed. She didn't need an overhaul. She was already a solid character in Revenge of the Island, and if they brought that version of her back with some small developments now that she finally has friends, if that version of her was the protagonist of Total Drama All-Stars, then she probably could have been good, but that's not the case, so she's gonna land in 6th place. In 5th place, she's from Total Drama Pocket 2 Island. It's Sky, the Zoey clone. At least physically, and how they tried to get her in a showmance with Dave that has some small similarities to Mike, and they both made the finale back to back. Like, Sky was their attempt at recreating Zoey. They thought that Zoey was so good, so transcendent, that Generation 3 just had to have one on their roster. So it was a really close call between Zoey and Sky. Despite having similarities, they have polar opposite gameplay styles. Zoey was perfect and won everything, while Sky never won a full challenge until the finale, and she just got to coast along. Sky will get the edge over Zoey because of her personality. In All-Stars, for the most part, Zoey was a love-struck idiot, while Sky was a more complex character at points, especially when it came to dealing with Dave. She had to juggle between Dave and winning the game, and I love that her competitiveness, her best trait, ultimately took over and she won the game, but she had to sacrifice Dave in the process instead of being perfect and getting both. Just the way that Sky was written and the situations that she got herself into are more grounded and relatable than Zoey, so she's better than Zoey. But she wasn't perfect because she had plenty of chances to tell Dave about her situation back home, and for those few episodes when she teamed up with Jasmine, she was so unlikable because Jasmine's unlikability rubbed off on her and she was being way too mean to Dave. Also in the finale, she manipulated Dave with a kiss despite having a boyfriend at home, and that made me want to see her lose, which unfortunately didn't happen in my version the first time that I watched it. At the time, seeing Sky and Zoey win back to back was vomit worthy. But yeah, Sky really is a mixed bag that probably could have benefited from having another season, but for this list, she's gonna land somewhere near the middle, in 5th place. In 4th place, it's Priya, the newcomer from Total Drama Revival Season 1. Priya ranks here mainly because of what she wasn't compared to what a lot of the previously mentioned contestants were. She wasn't annoying, at least in this season, and she didn't have plot armor at all. She was legitimately the best player on her season. She trained for Total Drama since birth, and her advancing further into the game makes sense, and it didn't have to make her overpowered for it to happen. She was just a normal, fairly balanced person. Also, she and Millie's friendship was fun when Millie wasn't writing in her journal. Priya wasn't the problem in that dynamic, unlike her role in the Prelip dynamic from the following season. As a protagonist, she wasn't bad, so that's why she ranks over others, but she wasn't amazing and she didn't make her mark on the season like some other characters on her season, like Bowie and Julia, and like some other characters that are coming up, so she can only land in 4th place. In third place, it's Cameron from Total Drama Revenge of the Island, the first solidly good protagonist on this list. He didn't have the most consistent story at all because they chose to prioritize someone like Scott over him, and even though he's part of the Golden Trio and made it further than Mike by a good margin, a lot of the focus went towards Mike and Zoey, with Cameron being a third wheel. Cameron should have got more in this season for sure. He definitely got hindered by the 13 episode format, but in the end, it was fun seeing a bubble boy that really hadn't had that much experiences in life being able to go out into the real world and make friends and soak up those experiences. Like, I remember he made me laugh when he was trying to climb up Mount Looming Tragedy and he was struggling to lift himself up off the ground, and there were more moments. And yeah, it was just a nice way to end his journey by beating lightning in a physical challenge with the assistance of his smarts after Joe told Cameron in the beginning that he's challenged upstairs if he thinks that he can win Total Drama without getting physical. He's a relatable guy, so I really enjoyed watching his journey. I just wish that I didn't have to see what happened to him and his friends in All Stars, but for this list, Cameron is going to rank in third place. In second place, it's Lindsay from Total Drama Action. After being a Heather puppet in the previous season and starting this season off getting manipulated by Justin, Lindsay had a nice development in this season when she became a leader. Now, she wasn't a successful leader. Most of her takeover attempts ended in losses for her team, but that doesn't mean that the process was bad. Her calls were actually solid, especially in the Sandwich Project episode. She didn't make it easy on the gaffers to scare them out of the tent. And yeah, in this season, she's not necessarily a lot smarter like IQ level. She's still similar for the most part and had her typical Lindsay moments, but she was less willing to let people walk all over her like in the previous season, especially Heather and Courtney. Lindsay was the only good part of that boring slugfest of a season, so I really didn't like seeing her go out in that terrible elimination where she fell victim to Courtney's plot armor in the hotel trashing challenge and she voted herself out of the game. That definitely wasn't a good conclusion to her story in this season, and if the writers either let her win or just not let her go out sad like that, then maybe she could have had a way stronger case for first place on the list, but as it stands, first place is clear of her. But yeah, this is the version that should have been brought back in future seasons, but unfortunately, they derailed her character into Patrick Star. But this is only for Total Drama Action, so she's gonna rank in second place for her amazing season. And in first place, there was never a question at all. It's Gwen from Total Drama Island. She had the best single season story in all of Total Drama. She came in as a loner personality. That's so relatable, but she didn't let that weigh her down. Actually, as the season went along, she was able to grow as she gained some solid friends in Lashana, Bridget, Duncan, Jeff, and even Trent, and for the most part, this stuff didn't just come out of nowhere. There were dedicated episodes that focused on her strengthening her relationships with these people. That's what Total Drama Island excelled at. Also, Gwen had to overcome so much in this season because of Heather, which wasn't even Gwen's fault at all. Like, with every incident, I was always on Gwen's side. It was perfect seeing Gwen outlast Heather and contribute to her well-deserved downfall in this season because Gwen wasn't the strongest competitor in the I Triple Dog Dare You challenge, but her relationships, her people skills got her into the finale of that season when she teamed up with Owen, which wraps up her journey nicely heading into the finale where it didn't matter if she won the game or not. She already won by becoming a way better person than when she first got on the island. Gwen is great, but with a show like Total Drama, they can't give the same level of emphasis to the same characters in every season, so she took a downfall for sure. It was rough to watch her in the seasons that followed. Like in the future seasons, the relationships that she built either slowly evaporated or were non-existent, especially with Jeff and Bridget, and this was all in favor of the love triangle saga that dominated World Tour and All-Stars, which was a mixed bag. There was some good and bad to come from the love triangle. Gwen went downhill in future seasons, but for this one season, she was a great character, so she's going to rank in first place on the list. And that's every main total drama protagonist ranked. They aren't the best characters because a good amount of them are either boring, perfect, or plot armored. Middle ground characters are usually better, but the ones that they got right in Cameron, Lindsay, and Gwen are some of the best characters in the show, and if there's another season, I want the protagonists to get some of what they got and have a 26 episode season to go along with it. That really worked for Lindsay and Gwen. But yeah, that's all for this video.